going to play in the room. So,
You can hear me?
all right, you count to 10 and you can begin.
Okay.
All right.
Which side do you want me on?
This is fine. All right, I think that's 8. Okay, good afternoon. We are the co-directors from the Center of Teaching Excellence, Elizabeth Brown and David Fuentes, and we are pleased today to co-host this event where hopefully we can turnkey some of the strategies and information we're learning today into our own practice.
So I have the distinct pleasure of introducing our moderator for today's session. Associate Dean Mel Zalecki has been kind enough to serve in this capacity. And so I'll offer Mel the floor now to introduce our panelists and to get us started. We look forward to doing some roundtable discussions after our panel this morning, or this afternoon.
Thank you, David and Liz. Thank you, everyone, for coming to this event co-hosted by the College of Science and Health and the Center for Teaching Excellence. Just to give you a little bit of background information, the College of Science and Health, Dean Sharma is here too, he paid for it, sponsored 15 faculty members to attend a micro-credential course on creating a supportive and inclusive learning environment that is offered by ACUE. This is the Association of Colleges and University Educators back in spring 2021. The course was based on 7 teams, and 4 out of the 15 faculty members who have attended this course have graciously volunteered to speak on these topics. The speakers are going to be Professor Lydia Albuquerque from Department of Nursing will speak to us on welcoming students to online learning and promoting civil learning. Professor Nasalo Tidi from Public Health will speak to us on ensuring equitable access and helping students persist in learning. Dr. David Gilly from Biology Department will speak to us on embracing diversity in learning and checking for student understanding. And last but not the least, Professor David Nason from Department of Mathematical Sciences will speak to us on providing useful feedback to our students. The other course attendees are also in the audience, and they will participate in the roundtable discussion after the presentation. With that said, I will now ask Professor Lydia Albuquerque to take over and speak to us on the first 2 topics.
Thank you so much, Dr. Zalki, and thank you, Dr. Dean Sharma, for giving us this opportunity to present after we have attended the faculty development of ACU micro-credentialing. So there were 7 competencies that we went over, and the first 2 I will be speaking on is welcoming students to online learning. As we all know, William Patterson University has actually, especially the College of the Department of Nursing, has online programs in nursing and other departments too. And we are now in the midst of acclimatizing ourselves in year 2, 3 on this new program that some of us have been introduced to. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right, so I'll be talking about welcoming students to online learning. The key topics that I will be discussing today are to ensure the course is student ready, ensure that the students start strong, and build a community of learning. So the first topic, next slide, is to ensure the course is student ready. So to ensure that the course is student ready, one needs to organize course content from a student's point of view. So the first thing that all faculty members who are preparing themselves to teach online need to set up students for success. And we've heard this over and over again. Students get easily frustrated if they cannot navigate through the system. And hence, you need to utilize and activate the student preview function to understand how the students feel of what you have created on the back end. It's also essential to create a tutorial so that the students can visit and learn about the systems that are being used. Next slide, please. Before you start, conduct a technology check. Technology tools help to teach, learn, and communicate online. They also help to navigate files and resource paths. As a faculty member, you need to review all links from the outside sources, such as articles and blogs. Double check all videos and audio files are working. Ensure that the quizzes are ready for students. Send an email to the entire class and ensure that they have received it. And also make sure that students can download any assignment and reading material. Next slide, please. To ensure students start strong, send a welcome email before the course starts. It's like inviting the students to a big party. The party is their coursework. Make a syllabus available to them. Prepare the students for the first day of the class, just as you would have done in a face-to-face class. Assure students that the course will become clearer as they dive in. Next slide. Develop an online orientation module. Make sure that general information about online learning is included. What are the weekly communications and expectations? Help them to navigate through the online courses. Have syllabus activities for the students and open discussion for a Q&A session. Now let's go on how to design a syllabus activity. Have a syllabus scavenger hunt. How many of your peers do you need to reply for this course? When is your project proposal due? Are just examples of how you could develop a syllabus scavenger hunt. A syllabus discussion board. What 2 key points in the syllabus caught your attention and why could be included. Always personalize and customize learning outcomes. Ask the students to choose a learning outcome and resonate with them for personal or professional reasons as to why they have selected that. In this way, you engage the student learning from taking place right from the from the start of the course. Next, create an online introduction discussion forum. Create an opportunity for students to get to know each other. Include introduction prompts such as, what experience do you have with this course topic? What is your biggest fear or hope about engaging in online classes? This way, you take away the fear of the unknown among the students so that they get engaged in the course. Next slide, please. Build student-to-student relationships. In a face-to-face classroom, it is easy for students to build relationship. In an online class, it is difficult, and hence have things like getting to know you. Send out survey questions to know more about the student and the groups, and form groups so that students start interacting with each other and engage in learning. The second topic that I will be discussing now is promoting civil online learning environment. To promote civil online learning environment, it is important to set policies for civility in your syllabus. You can state as such, this syllabus contains the policies and expectations that have been established for this course. These policies and expectations are intended to create a productive learning atmosphere for all students. Please bring any concerns you may have to my attention. Explicitly stating yourself in the beginning of the course helps in promoting civil and online learning environment. Also include a statement of what students can expect from you. I will be present in the course and maintain a civil learning environment for all and will respect your opinion. Next slide. Set expectations that promote civility. Set clear civility and netiquette guidelines in your syllabus. Model and reinforce civil behaviors and professional expectation. Collaborate with the students to create a community norm. Effectively respond to varying levels of challenges and student behaviors. You will, as a faculty member, be faced with some student behaviors in online learning. You must respond and effectively respond to minor disruptions. You must respond to major challenges negatively impacting the learning environment and also coach students to manage challenging conversations. Next slide, please. So, how do you actually state behaviors and expectations in a course? You must state that you are expected to do your own work. Cheating, plagiarism, and any form of academic dishonesty will not be tolerated and will result in and include the consequences. Provide meaningful and constructive dialogues to encourage the students that require a willingness to listen and have mutual respect to each other and to the faculty member. Talking about netiquette guidelines, when you include netiquette guidelines, make sure you are inclusive of all the students. Be on time to respond to the students. Disagree respectfully. They need to, between themselves or within the groups. They need to be concise. They need to stay on the topic. No yelling. Yelling can happen with words and sentences and paragraphs. Add some emotions and use humor carefully. You got to place this on your discussion board or on your course syllabus. Next, how do we model and reinforce civil behaviors and professional expectations? Be approachable. As a faculty member, you should be having your office hours. If it's online, scheduled office hours, responding to the students within a time frame. You need to check the tones. Commit to a response time for questions and emails. That is in your syllabus. You need to state what time frame is being allocated for the students to receive a response and connect expectations to professional behaviors. Next slide, please. Collaborate with students to create community norms. Engage students with regards to online communication, what, how, and the language that they need to use. Effectively respond to minor disruptions. So when you respond to minor disruptions, you may respond to individual students or you may respond to the full group just to make sure that there is a balance that will be created and not result in major disruptions. Effectively respond to major challenges negatively impacting the learning environment. Reach out to offending students individually and then reach out to the whole group. The last but not the least is to coach the students to manage challenging conversations. So as an online faculty or, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, students do have emotions. They do express their emotions. In a face-to-face class, you will be able to observe the emotions, but in an online, you will observe the emotions either through their emails or to their context of the text that they write in the discussion board. So help students to manage their emotions. Reach out to students and maybe hold an office hour with them or give them some time so that they can speak to you about their feelings. Ask questions to help them create a plan of action. Practice the conversation. And as faculty member, we need to model an active listening. I just want to say thank you so much. These were the two modules that were the first two modules that we were introduced to. And it was a great learning experience. And it has helped me tremendously as a faculty member who has been involved in designing online courses and teaching online courses just to move forward and improve teaching style for student success. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me? All right, great. Again, my name is Dr. Nasilo Teddy. I'm a professor from the Public Health Department, and I will be speaking today about ensuring equitable access to online learning, as well as helping students persist in online learning. And before I begin my presentation, I also want to thank Dean Sharma for this opportunity. This was an amazing training. I think all faculty should take it, all instructors should take it. It really was eye-opening, and I really benefited greatly from it. So first, talking about ensuring equitable access to online learning. During the training, this was actually titled Engaging Unprepared Students, so that might put more context into some of this information. But first, we want to identify students' prior knowledge. Especially in the online learning environment, we take for granted what students have learned before coming to that particular course. And so offering something like a pre-assessment, an entry quiz that's not graded, something where instructors can see what the students know, especially what they know in terms of what's important to know for that class beforehand, so that we can build future lessons, future information based on what we know from them. So using early ungraded assignments and pre-assessments, this will help identify these areas where students may need further information before really getting into the main course content. Next, we want to implement instructional practices that support student success. This section of the training dealt with the idea of using evidence-based teaching strategies. As instructors, we often have our own methods that we use for teaching, but these may or may not be based on research. And so in the training, we learned that we should really identify successful strategies that we can use to help students really build confidence in the course material. So incorporating research-based study skills, monitoring online activity to identify challenges. Within all online courses, there's an option to check when students are in the course, how long they stay in certain aspects of the course. So are they looking at the lecture materials more? Are they staying in the assignment section more? Or are they even coming in the course at all? And that allows us to reach out to students who may never enter the course or wait until the end of the week to start even looking at what is required for that particular module. So using that LMS system to really track student activity, and then providing opportunities for student practice, again, with that idea of building confidence in students using that growth mindset. Next, we want to offer additional supports to meet student needs. So we want to develop a resource center, so to speak, in the course, either a folder or posting it as an announcement, but really letting students know where things are in the course that would be helpful for them, and also resources at the university. Posting that as an announcement, having a folder, and constantly reminding students that it's there, so even sending them an email to alert them that this resource folder is available. Providing supplemental resources and tools, additional articles, additional things that they can use to help them do well in the course. Assisting students also in using campus-based resources. If possible, posting a video from the instructor where all of these different resources are discussed and outlined so students can have an easy time finding them. Next, in helping students persist in online learning, we want to build a student's growth mindset. For many students, when they enter their first online course, they're nervous, they don't know what to expect. And so as instructors, we want to put them at ease, so to speak, and we want to find things that they are good at in order to give them that confidence and build that growth in them, so that when we do give them feedback that they might not see as positive, they take it as something to help them as opposed to seeing it as us attacking them or tearing them down. So from the beginning of the semester, perhaps having assignments that are not graded, but assignments where instructors can provide feedback, looking at the positive aspects of what the students contributed, and then offering suggestions for improvement as well. This would help students to accept feedback in a positive way, provides an opportunity for learning, focuses on their growth, and also offers specific feedback on areas of growth and areas for improvement. Next, we want to increase students' sense of belonging. As mentioned in the previous presentation, the online learning environment can be very isolating. So as much as possible, we want to try and build community. One way of doing this is offering virtual office hours as well as group office hours. Now, when we're teaching in the online environment, we may think, we don't have to interact necessarily with students in a one-on-one or live fashion. However, if it's possible to create office hours where students can see you, speak to you, that creates a sense of belonging. Another way that we learned in the training to create a sense of belonging is using examples from students in the weekly announcements. So for example, if you provide a summary of the week's material, you might highlight this student said in their paper and this student offered in their assignment and this was really great. And so including the students' names, their experiences, what they've contributed to the course in the announcements is another way to, again, create that sense of community and create a supportive learning environment. We want to use choice and points when appropriate to increase persistence. So giving students that opportunity to choose the kind of assignments that they do. As we know, all students do not learn the same way. So if there is an option perhaps that there is perhaps a test or a paper and there is a choice between what students get to do, that again increases their confidence level, increases that feeling of belonging, and increases their feeling of connectedness to the course, that they have some say in their learning. Offering choice assignment types and offering choice in course resources helps to do that, build the student confidence, and build the student sense of belonging. Okay, and so that is it for my section. Thank you very much.
All right, let's see here. Looks familiar. Okay, I do not have a title slide. My name is David Gilley from the Department of Biology. I just thought I would share, first of all, my perspective coming into this. Coming off of a year during the pandemic, the sort of year of chaos here, where we were there were synchronous online things going, there were asynchronous things, there were in-person things. I was teaching split labs and all this kind of crazy stuff. And this workshop came right at a good time where I had all these questions in my head about how can I do this? How can I make online instruction actually work? And I'd also been teaching an online course, an upper-level biology elective course over the summer that was asynchronous, that I had done for a couple of years. And so also I was sort of primed thinking, how can I make this better? And so this workshop came along, and I really also got a lot out of it. It answered a lot of questions that were in my mind, and that I've since then have a chance to put into practice. I also wanted to mention that, besides the online, all this stuff we're talking about was in the context of online instruction, but I think so much of this stuff also translates into in-person instruction, and maybe we can talk about that, some in the roundtable. So it's been useful not just for online stuff, but in continuing stuff. So what I was going to talk about today is two of the modules that we talked about in this workshop, and I wasn't sure how much time we were going to have here. So my approach was there were sort of three main learning objectives within each of these modules, and I thought what I would do is kind of attack the one that I felt was most directly central and talk about that a little bit, and then put some other bullet point ideas up here that we can come back to and talk about if people want to. So let's see, and I have these animations here. So first of all, Module 5, Embracing Diversity in Online Teaching. This was I think, in my opinion, a very central module in this workshop. So there were three learning objectives here. One about implicit bias, and we all took a workshop. When was that? A year and a half ago or so on implicit bias. So I think most of the people from within the institution here are familiar with this. Creating an inclusive online course and learning environment, which is this is a pretty all-encompassing learning objective. And then understanding and mitigating the impact of stereotype threat and microaggressions. So the one that I thought I would really focus on here to go over some key points on was that middle one, because it captured so much of what I felt was central and helpful in this workshop. And the first point of this is to begin with the syllabus, to introducing, making an inclusive syllabus that makes the students feel comfortable. And some of this already, Lydia and Nasolo have talked about some ideas of making a syllabus that does this. But there were some additional points that were made in here specifically related to diversity and embracing diversity. To include an explicit value statement of diversity in the syllabus is one of these things that you hear somebody say, well, you should do this. And you say, oh, of course I should do this, but it never had occurred to me before to explicitly write out a little paragraph that says, here is why diversity is important. So for example, particularly for the sciences, it was very easy, I found, to craft a statement that talked about the importance of diversity in science and lending. We want to put all the hypotheses on the table, and then and that really makes science strong to have that diversity in there. And another thing about this course and this workshop that I found, and I think others, we've talked about this before, is that there are a lot of very specific resources for this. So for example, they had sample diversity statements that you can work with. So there's besides just general ideas, there was a lot of very specific stuff to kind of grab and deal with. Dialogue rules, we talked about that. Let's see, I guess, I forget. We've talked about the dialogue rules, putting something in the syllabus that really establishes what the rules are for comfortable dialogue in an online environment, whether that's an asynchronous environment or a synchronous environment. Again, just to make these rules very explicit so everybody feels comfortable and they see that the diversity is valued and sort of defended and supported by the instructor. And lastly, to include some resources about inclusivity in the syllabus, so like links to financial aid and mental health and some things like that. I forget. There's a whole list of ideas in the materials that we were provided. Again, as a sort of go-to resource, for the students, whatever kind of problems they're having, and to just acknowledge that these are issues. That affect students, that go beyond just the material in the classroom to make them feel comfortable. Let's see, acknowledging the value of students' unique perspectives. This is something that I think, particularly for an online environment, is sort of natural in a classroom where you have a chance for informal conversations and you can talk with students and communicate to them that not only not that you're the instructor and you know everything and you're going to tell them all about that and to take it or leave it, but that everybody is collaborating. It's a collaborative group, and everybody together, they are teaching you just as you are teaching them about maybe different things, but they have a unique perspective to contribute, and just acknowledging that. Again, it's kind of easy to do naturally, I think, in a classroom setting, but in an online environment, it's difficult to do. So you have to go out of your way to do it. Is what the module was talking about. Doing in either discussion boards or online posts, again, either asynchronously or synchronously. I'm really trying to bring out and draw out, finding opportunities to engage in conversations that ask them about their perspectives, ask them about their experiences, and how that brings them to approach the material. Let's see, use of course materials and examples that reflect a diverse society. So this is another one that is I guess makes so much sense when you think about it. To go through this sort of you can do it at a course planning level, doing a syllabus check to go through and make sure that you're including whether you're using primary research papers or textbook examples, or a lot of times we're talking about famous scientists and things like that, to use examples from all across, representing the actual diversity of our society. Let's see what else. And maintaining respectful dialogue. This is one that we've talked about before in an online course, in either a synchronous or an asynchronous case. It will sometimes happen where offense is given. Sometimes usually it's unintentional. Occasionally I actually haven't had too many cases in my own online teaching of intentional offense, I don't think. Usually it's unintentional, but dealing with those immediately and being very proactive about this, that this is a responsibility of the course instructor, particularly to have a kind of map in your head of knowing when you put a discussion topic out there or something, if it's going to be, anticipating whether it's going to be a little bit controversial maybe or not, or whether there's room for people feeling awkward about discussing that topic, and being ready to kind of jump on that and moderate that, and that can involve constantly monitoring posts, removing posts, If they're giving offense, whether the offense is unintentional or intentional, communicating with the person that gave offense and also communicating with the people that might have received offense, and communicating with the whole course to make sure that that doesn't make people disconnect from the course material. Okay, let me move on here to, again, I'll sort of put these bullet points up here, and we can come back and discuss some of these other things if people are interested in talking about these, but I want to respect people's time. There's so much to talk about with each of these things. So we can come back and talk about some of those if you want to. And I'll move on to the other module that I was going to give an overview of here, which is checking for student understanding in online learning. And again, here we had three sort of learning objectives within this, talking about using effective questioning practices, mostly within a synchronous environment. Implementing practices to check for understanding, and monitoring and addressing misconceptions. So I'm going to focus in on that second one here and talk about, first of all, about structured classrooms. So structured classrooms, the idea here is to constantly to lay out some kind of structure where you're constantly receiving feedback from the students. And so you're receiving feedback to kind of gauge how you teach, but then also the students, of course, are receiving feedback to gauge how much they're learning. This is, so this idea of practice makes perfect, of practice, practice, practice. One of the links, we didn't read this for the course, but it was sort of pointed to in the course materials. This book, I don't know if anybody's read this book or you've heard of it before. It's called Make It Stick: The Science of Successful Learning. It's an excellent book that I recommend everybody, everybody read. It's about one of the things about structured classrooms, and it's summarizing all the educational research on how using questioning practices, checks for understanding, and structured classrooms can increase learning, and also importantly decrease the gap in achievement between underprepared and prepared students. So that's maybe especially important, I think, for us here in our science courses. So let's see. Just a lot of very practical suggestions for using online polls, surveys, and quizzes. Polls being kind of quick little things you constantly put into your lecture to check for understanding and make sure people are following along. Surveys being more extended things, but things where the responses of the class are actually shown, within the whatever kind of learning software you're using. The class can see, what the most common response was. That's very effective for in the classroom use. And then quizzes being a little bit more formal, outside where they're actually getting scores. Whether you use that as a large part of their grade or not, it can be up to you, of course. But another thing that's emphasized in all this is ungraded practice, as you were saying, Nasolo, the giving them a chance to do this in a safe environment, to practice and check their learning, without losing 20% of their grade from a major exam. So that was an important point. And then there were just a lot of good suggestions for other sort of, I don't know, you might call them less formal things to use in discussion forums and things like this. Muddiest points, so it was a good one. I've tried using some of these since the workshop in my online courses, and I have found them effective. Muddiest point, just putting out there, what was the most unclear thing in either this lecture, this reading, or this discussion we had. That has worked well. 1 minute thread, so you time it, just kind of brainstorm, put some thoughts down into a discussion board. And then there are also some points on how to use chat strategically, which is a bit of a skill that I'll admit I haven't quite mastered. Okay, so I'll stop there and leave time for David here. And again, I'll put up some of these other learning objectives, some things that we can talk about if we have time and there's the interest to talk about that. And I'll turn it over to you, David.
Okay, so I actually also chose to speak on engaging underprepared students, since retention is such an important issue at our school. So many of the people that spoke before me did such a good job. So some of these topics have already been here before in today's presentations. But one thing is an early assessment as soon as you start your course. Have some sort of a a thing for them to hand in just to make sure that their technology is working. And then the next thing I was going to talk about is having some ungraded assignments, some assignments to give just so that, well, for a number of reasons. One thing is that ungraded assessment is actually really useful. It's hard to do in an in-person course because it takes class time, and class time is very valuable. Online is actually the perfect environment for doing ungraded assessments. And students get immediate feedback. They don't have to wait for you to grade them. They can see exactly what it is that they do and don't know in a given assignment. So here's a little example. I chose something from Dr. Zalecki's area, combinatorics on purpose. There's a special number called S242, and I asked students what this counts. This is actually from one of my classes. So they can see they have 3 different choices, and they immediately get feedback: incorrect, Stirling numbers don't count this, or incorrect, Stirling numbers don't count that, or correct. So students can, you can sort of like figure out what the most common misconceptions are and create questions like this and catch student errors before they actually make these mistakes on any sort of a graded assignment. Now, one thing that I have been doing a long time, even before the ACUE course, but I was really happy to see that the ACUE course emphasized this, was having lots of low-stakes assessment. So one thing is a lot of students might not be familiar with a situation where they're being tested regularly. We don't know what schools they're coming from or how often they've had these kinds of graded assessments before in the past. So one thing that you can do is if you can make the value very, very low in an online class, and you can give a lot of it because it's not eating up class time. So you can provide this, and also it's not necessarily eating up your grading time. And yes, it takes a long time to set up, maybe many quizzes, but once it's set up, it runs very smoothly. And students get a lot of time to practice before the actual exams. Not only that, they know that the value of each quiz is very low. So their test anxiety is reduced. And it can still add up to a significant portion of their grade by the end of the course if there's enough of it. Okay, and also, it was just mentioned in the last slide, is make it stick. They spent some time on explaining how to teach students how to learn. And this book is an amazing book. They emphasized 11 different strategies from this book in the course. But the one I actually wanted to talk about is the growth mindset, because I always like to say, people who've never lifted a weight before, they don't expect to go into a weight room and then suddenly bench press the heaviest, dumbbells that they could find, barbells that they can find. But with math, for some reason, they expect to go in and do nothing without practice. It takes a lot of practice, and emphasizing that this is something that you build up over time, that you exercise the brain. You don't just jump into the hardest problem right off the bat, or say that I'm not good at math. This is just an excuse, so I don't have to work. They talk a lot about this, focusing on not it being character, not it being performance. There's a great quote by the Randall Munroe, the comic who wrote XKCD, which said, "I never trust somebody who," and I'm not getting it word for word because I didn't plan to say this in the talk, but he said, "I never trust somebody who wants to be good at something more than they want to do the thing they want to be good at." And this is sort of something like this. You want to develop a mindset where you say, "I enjoy the process of doing the math. I don't enjoy getting 100 on the exam. I enjoy doing the process of exercising these problems and getting it right." So sort of nurturing that kind of a mindset and letting people understand that things are not automatic. It was mentioned before that we have ways, actually since attendance is mandatory now, all of us hopefully who have taught online know how to see when students are logging in. But one thing that the course provided that I like is they provided lots of sample emails. So for instance, if somebody has not yet logged into a class, the course has like a template email that you can send to a student. Of course, you adjust it to make sure that it has your flavor. It sounds like it's coming from you. For students who have logged in but are not logging in enough, they have other examples. So this was really helpful. I really enjoyed having some templates to look at, to help with online communication with students. Because sometimes just figuring out how to phrase these things can be difficult for us. A course resource page is also something that, I mean, sort of we do this whenever we have class notes, right? Sometimes you come up with a new way of looking at something and you add it to your notes and you add it to your notes. Online, this is actually really easier to do. You have a page and external blogs, external articles, YouTube videos. When Mythologer comes up with a new YouTube video on something that you teach in class, you just add it to that part of your course. So you have a course resources page with everything that you include that's related directly to the material in the course. And then finally, a campus resources page with everything else that's related to their experience as a student and things that they might need to help them, but not directly related to the material in their course. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Albuquerque, Dr. Teddy, Dr. Gilly, and Dr. Nason. Now I'm going to hand over the floor to one of the CTE co-directors to moderate the remaining roundtable discussion. Thank you.
And let's just give a hand to the panelists. Okay, so let's begin by quickly surveying the room, because I know some of you also attended ACU Week. So just raise your hand if you attended. Okay, all right, so we're split. So that works out nicely. So what I would like us to now do is really reflect on what we just learned and think about some of these strategies and practices and which ones might seem applicable to our practice. So those of you on the right side of the room, if you could relocate to your left side of the room so that you're amongst some of the participants from ACUE in a COVID-safe way. So what I would like us to really do is think about which of the practices we learned about. And because we are now a smaller group, it might make sense to do this together collectively as opposed to in small tables. Think of some of the practices you learned and which ones you think might be something you would want to implement in your teaching. Yes?
The problem of answering that is each of the modules was like a rabbit hole. And you could go as deep as you want. For example, we could talk about a welcome letter and the intricacies in that. When should it go out? What should it incorporate? And I think what might be better for the campus community is if we started a collection of welcome letters that people have used successfully and unsuccessfully. And
I think that's amazing. So some kind of because I was thinking when you were sharing about the templates, like that would be really great. And even when you were speaking about the dialogue for inclusive teaching and things to add. So having almost a resource library, a folder. Because the next question was going to be what questions and resources do we need? So you're skipping right to the meat of this conversation. I think that this is an excellent idea, and I'm sad we don't have more people in the room because I think these are all, we all survived and attempted to thrive through this pandemic. And collectively as teachers, we were kind of isolated in our office spaces or basements or wherever we were Zooming with our students. So I think today's activity is really to say, all right, now we have this information, we have these materials, how can we now share this more universally? So I think that's a great idea. Are these materials you can share or are they just locked? Because sometimes there's copyright issues.
I mean, I have the PDFs, but I don't know if we're allowed to share them or not.
No, but certainly to Kevin's point, a place, a database where we can house some of what our faculty are using in terms of welcoming letters. David G. really enlightened me and opened my thinking about looking at the syllabus as a place to begin being inclusive. That's very concrete and tangible. And similarly, the point that he made about in an online setting, it really requires being intentional to go sort of out of our way to build community and think about ways that we're incorporating aspects of diversity positively. That I think is very true. And so thinking about that in terms of coming back to our physical setting, I'm also reminded of ways that we can enhance community and just demonstrate to students actively what we prioritize in our class. What a powerful message it is to see the professor saying, I value this, and this is what citizenship looks like in our class. That's a very interesting, I think, concrete step that must resonate with students who are seeing that differently, because there have been myriad syllabi who don't have that statement. So what is the impact when it does have that statement? I think that's a very fair question. And another place where we could develop a Rolodex of different ways in which syllabi and course outlines are being enhanced with some of this messaging that seems to be representative of what might become some of our movement towards decolonization. So I think that's a very impactful couple of points that I took away. And to Kevin's point, would be another place where we could start to build resources as a community.
I'm also thinking my takeaway from this is the science of learning. Like you're learning and you're using practices and there's evidence to show that they're effective. But what's effective or more effective for our student population? So I almost would want to do little surveys to see what our students at William Patterson really enjoy about your courses and the changes you've made, so that if we create some kind of a library, we know which resources to really prioritize. If students really like the letters, if students really enjoy being asked their opinion and their worldview before starting a course. So I'm almost curious, the researcher in me is wondering, like, what really connects and resonates with our students, and we could really continue to emphasize.
I was actually going to ask, has there been a survey or any type of research done with students over the past 2 years to ask what their experience has been? We did something informal in public health, and one piece of feedback we received is that instructor presence is not great, that instructors put the assignments in the course at the beginning of the semester or whatever, and some instructors don't come back until the end of the semester, or just make that beginning of the week post, end of the week post. But in this training, we learned it should be pretty much daily, and it should be an interaction that's consistent with emails, announcements, feedback. I don't think that's happening across the board, and so everyone is not going to take this training, and so perhaps we need to do more quality control in terms of what students are getting in that online format.
That's a really, really strong point. It connects to me with another point that you earlier made. It is very important for us to think about different opportunities that exist to re-privilege our students in that way. So I think that's a very good point.
And I don't have an answer about whether we've surveyed during the pandemic or after. I think we're still in it. I don't know. As to what students' experiences are with online classes, I think that we would need to do it in a way to really drill down who went to ACUE and who didn't, to see if there's a difference, if that was something we wanted to measure, or survey professors about their teaching styles to see if there's a correlation between these kind of inclusive strategies and presence and communication strategies.
Well, what's really interesting also is the point that you made about evidence-based practices. It stands in contrast to best practice, which it implies that there's one thing we can do that will impact all students. Evidence-based practice will allow us to have an equity-based approach where we realize that there could be different kinds of students within our midst. And then collecting data around our students' perceptions around what takes place in their experience in our classroom would be the evidence that we base around that practice. So for me, I think that was the point in my previous comment that really resonated, was the distinction between a best practice, which almost seems like a panacea, versus an evidence-based practice, which really could be very specific to a student and a context and a curriculum. So what I do in one discipline with this particular group of students who perhaps are sophomores may be different from what is needed in another discipline with a different group of students. And that is, I think, to your point, that's the evidence that would be needed to begin to form instruction based on, rather than best practice, evidence-based practice.
Yes?
Is there a place that we can read more or learn more about evidence-based practice? Because for me, it feels a little bit vague exactly what you mean by evidence-based. It sounds like there's research behind this and there's certain ways we're supposed to be doing it. Is there any way we can learn more about that, or what exactly these practices are?
Yeah, I mean, in general, yes, 100%. The science of learning, I think, is a good place to start, and other kinds of just cognitive understandings about what learning looks like. But it's not going to be the case that there will be, a one-size-fits-all. It will be more the case that in each individual setting, with each individual instructor, with each series of students, there may be a nexus within that group that may not be replicable in another setting. So it really is about the evidence that is needed in a specific setting to generate, how our instruction would respond to who students are in that setting. It's difficult to generalize to another setting. The moment we change disciplines, the moment we change the students, it becomes more difficult. But certainly there is lots of research that supports what evidence-based practice looks like, but it also suggests that it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all application. So what works for you may not work for Dr. Brown, and it may not work in education what works in math. And that adds a layer of complexity. The pedagogical techniques we're seeing here, I would say, rise above and cut across because they deal with the student in a very different way as agentic. And really, I think that's more of what contributes to a growth mindset and the kind of autonomy and agency that's needed for students to bloom.
Can I just add there, another thing, a lot of I really like the Make It Stick book as far as a dive into the research on pedagogy. But one thing is that a lot of the research there is all the outcome is student learning and increasing student learning. And that's great, and that's an important part. I wanted to make the additional point that I think also an aspect of this is that even sometimes a lot of these practices are good even for students that don't have a great learning outcome, and I'm thinking in terms of retention. That a lot of these things can help make the students feel more comfortable and included in the course, even if they only do so and so well. But you still have a good, I don't know, what do you want to call it? It's still a good outcome, even though they don't maybe get all of the material that you wanted them to. So I just see that as another important rationale for us really diving into this as an institution and a college.
So this is Dr. Lydia Albuquerque. I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Hello? Yes. All right. So I just want to share that this is such a wealth of information that we receive going for the ACU course. As a faculty member, actually, I had 18-month training on online courses from Thomas Edison State University. It was a certification course, and I was introduced to it. But most of the faculty during the pandemic were trusted into this and were expected to do this without any background certification or training. So I think one step William Patterson can do is, gather all of 15 of the faculty members who have gone through this, and then we could be utilize our resources to guide faculty who require training or develop training modules for ourselves. I don't know if it's allowed because of copyright issues, because everyone will not have the opportunity to go through this ACU certification course, but we can help, because I say that it's important. It's important because it's something new in the last 1 year, and we can make a difference among our students. We are struggling ourselves in spite of the training, but we can make a difference to a student success. It's not easy to teach online. It's time consuming. It's a big elephant in the room. It's time consuming understanding the course modules, understanding the student's perspective is so very important. And as I say, it's time consuming on the part of the professor and the students, both ends.
Thank you so much. I wanted to share from the Zoom chat a comment from Gigi Mohammed. She shares that she gives the students an opportunity to send in assignments prior to grading them so she can give feedback. So this kind of aligns with what the panelists were sharing, more opportunities for informal assessments or for non-graded assignments. I think a lot of students fear that they're not going to do well, and talking about the notion of retention, we have a high rate of students who are failing and then not returning. The correlation between those two things makes a lot of sense. If I'm failing, I feel like I don't belong, and if I feel like I don't belong, I'm not going to return. So more opportunities to go against a traditional grain, perhaps of academia, and allow students to realize that they can share assignments with our feedback rather than a grade at first. So I wanted to share that.
And to Lydia's point as well, I agree, Lydia, 100%. And if the participants are willing, I think that there would be lots of opportunity to facilitate further opportunities. As for the copyright stuff, we can investigate that and just know what we're dealing with. But certainly we have 15 peers who are suited and able to assist us in understanding what they have learned.
It's just a comment on that. One of the main objectives of conducting this joint session between CTE and the College of Science and Health is for us to be able to use, the knowledge that some of our faculty members have gained and, expand that to the other faculty members. And therefore, with the help of CTE and our 15 faculty members, we can design in-house workshops to share the ideas. And I think that is not going to be, a copyright issue, because we are using our own faculty and the CTE resources to prepare in-house workshop and share the knowledge with the other faculty members. As you can see from the 4 presentations, these are great professors who can teach well, but they are attesting, as well as the other faculty members, that they gained a lot from participating in this. So by having in-house workshops, we'll be encouraging other faculty members who did not get this opportunity to really be ready to learn. There is always something that you can learn and improve your teaching. I used to be a very stubborn math professor who always thought that I can teach well, I don't need anybody to tell me anything. But, we can see that there's always a room, to compromise and learn.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you very much for sharing. I just had another thought to a question raised earlier about other texts that could be beneficial. There's a 2015 text that's called The Pedagogy of Confidence, written by Yvette Jackson. The reason I recommend that text specifically for this audience is it uses a very famous cognitive psychologist's theories. I will probably get his name wrong, but it's Fervenstein. And the book really describes the connection scientifically of what affect does to the body. Things like cortisol, adrenaline, the chemical responses. So why is it then that we focus on students' feeling or sense of belonging? Well, because their brain responds to the way that they feel. And their situational nature of how they interact and experience their lived reality has a direct correlation to their propensity to add new dendrites and form synapses that are the gray matter of learning. So, there's a whole body of literature that helps us understand why what we recommend as good pedagogy is actually good science of learning. And there's a longer history, but that's one text that I wanted to recommend. And certainly I'm thinking about Dr. Nason, some of the points that he raised about students having mental blocks with mathematics. And we know that exists. We know that mathematics and history are 2 of the areas that are plagued most by that. And I really think there's a lot of opportunity, like what Dr. Nason said, to begin to break down and help create efficacy around testing and experiencing new opportunities by what we offer students in the classroom. And so the fact that assessment becomes a point of high cognitive demand for students would really make a lot of sense then to offer that more frequently, because that would decrease the amount of cognitive demand. So that's a very logical pedagogical technique that really meshes with the science of learning. So that makes a lot of sense, and there are numerous opportunities like that to continue to engage this panel and this audience and this audience with these fabulous insights.
I know there is a, yes, and then.
I just wanted to add for what strategies and practices seem applicable question. I think when I was doing this course, I felt how powerful the discussion forum can be when we were dealing with online teaching, because there are certain students who are very shy. They're very hesitant to raise questions during the class time. So I used a couple of the discussion forums, make smaller groups and give them topics to discuss. And there I feel that the activity is much more. So maybe we can have a pool where we can see how else we can use the discussion forum during the online teaching, because I thought that was a very powerful tool for the students who are very shy. Sometimes they feel that they are the only one struggling, but when they are in the discussion forum discussing with other students, they feel that whatever they are feeling, they are not alone. So they feel a little bit more connected. And in the online environment, because they are not meeting in person with other students, with their peers, I think discussion forum might give them some sense of connectivity with other students. So maybe somewhere we can just see what other uses of that part we can have.
Thank you so much. I mean, I think this notion of communication, connectivity, confidence, these are all the things that we need to begin with before we can get to the content. I mean, that's what I'm hearing, that we really need to de-emphasize the content and really emphasize establishing communities. And communities don't exist in rooms of 80 people. Typically, communities are smaller spaces. So that's a great insight.
I can think of something very small, like a breakout room in an online environment. As you move from one breakout room to the next, a simple technique like leaving behind the previous breakout group's work and allowing the next group to add on to it establishes a broader sense of community. And so that's a very simple pedagogical adjustment that we can make. We already have the breakout group set up. Now we want to leave some of the data from the previous group that informs. And we have various reasons why we do that. There's the idea of a zone of proximal development. Students learn very good from each other, perhaps even better than from us. So we want to leverage that. And the community and the sense of community, particularly in an online setting, it poses a challenge. It seems as though it's not there. So it requires us to think differently.
I think one of the most effective things that instructors can do in order to teach an online course is take an online course. Take a course. If you've done that, you start to see it. I mean, it's the ultimate student preview. You are the student now. What do you like? Do you like, seeing it this way? How do you feel when one assessment's going to be 40% of your grade or whatever in that course? There's actually no better way of seeing it from the other side, because obviously most of us never took an online course in our college experience. So it is actually a really good way to see it.
I was a senior in high school when the teacher said, email me, and I was like, what do you mean? I think Lydia's point about positioning from the student perspective really captures that, and I couldn't agree with you more. When you said experience an online class, my response was, that's really hard. I teach several of them and I don't have that same response, but when you say take one, my response is, that's really hard. So I think from the student's point of view, we might have a different response.
I'm excited about what our next step is going to be. I'm really thinking, because the goal was to turnkey. And we're sharing. There are 18 people currently online viewing, and those of us in this room. So I love this notion of creating resources that we can share with faculty members. Copyright infringement. We'll deal with that part. Today's PowerPoint, I think, is such a great resource. So even if someone can't listen to the recorded video, I think someone could review this as a resource and get some ideas, some takeaways right away. So we will share this with the faculty, but I really think the next step is thinking about how we can evaluate whether these types of strategies are supporting our students. And I don't want to just use student outcome as a form of evaluation, to your point. So perhaps we could creatively think of like a very small tool that you could use with your students to then show our colleagues that this is working for our students. So really to give, to your point about evidence-based practice, like this is evidence at our own university with our own students that these are the types of strategies that they feel more connected with. So I don't know who wants to join on that journey.
Since Dean Sharma is here, if we can give him opportunity for a closing remark.
Yes,
That would be wonderful. We really appreciate it.
The less I speak, it's better. Because after hearing to all these wonderful colleagues speak, the only thing that I can comment is that there will be another 15 of these individuals who will be training for another workshop for the ACU. I'm looking for the funds for them. So as soon as that is stabilized, one more 15 will be provided, and I will be convincing my decanal colleagues to be part of this enterprise and have others join from other colleges as well. So you'll have a wealth of colleagues with this knowledge base that you can add for many in-house conversations on how to modify this. At the end, we all know that all that we are doing is to make the students' experience much better.
Thank you very kindly for that. And, you know, this is our first collaboration with the College of Science and Health, but Dean Sharma and Associate Dean Zalecki have made it a truly pleasurable experience, and one in which we are now aware of the wealth of pedagogical knowledge that exists in your college. And certainly it would be incumbent upon us now to leverage those resources and to have them meet the broader community. And that's something that we look forward to. So I agree with Liz. I look forward to our next steps. I look forward to developing databases, to Kevin's point, and others who agreed that we have some intimate resources right here at our disposal that we can certainly leverage. So I don't know if our panelists have a final word. We do have 3 minutes left. Could we offer you each an opportunity for a closing remark?
Sure. Go ahead.
Sure. What came to mind for me from the last comment in terms of how I teach in person and online is what I want to teach this class, what I want to take this class, what I enjoy, what's going on in here right now. And I think using that as a guiding light, so to speak, for online, in person, really putting the student first. As we're speaking, I'm hearing faculty saying, where are we going to find the time for all these ungraded or whatever assessments and all this time in the course? And so I think we also need to keep everything in mind and be fair as we're talking about all of this and figure out a way that this can be done practically, and also keeping in mind the idea of privilege and students who perhaps don't have the time for all this interaction, don't have the access to what's needed to be successful in an online course, and just really having a broader discussion about all of this and not making it like an isolated conversation without taking into context everything else that surrounds what goes on in an online class.
I'll just say briefly, I think that the point about, it seems like there are a couple barriers to accomplishing there's so many effective practices that are laid out in this workshop that we took. It seems like the barriers to implementing them across the entire institution are the training and learning how to do them, and then also, like you're saying now, Solo, the time to implement them. And that's a challenge, and like Kevin was saying, going down a rabbit hole, it's been a challenge in the year since we took this, and I've been trying to implement this stuff. That has been a challenge, is to where do I use my time and which things do I effectively implement. But I guess it's a good problem to have, I guess, in one sense, and that it's we got a lot of riches in front of us in terms of options and ideas to pursue, and I look forward to doing that both in my own courses and contributing to the dialogue at the institution.
I'll echo a lot of that. The number of changes that you can make in an online class, there was really a tremendous amount of material throughout the different sections in this course. So, there's a lot of different changes that one can make. As soon as I start a new course in the beginning of the semester, I jump to section 1. Looking up exactly, how to properly, test all of your technology and writing the welcome letters and all of that. So having this has really helped me a great deal already. Even though we haven't taken the course that long ago, I really appreciate having the experience.
And I will contribute to the parting word. Rome was not built in a day. A few of us have had the experience of going through this, and we take baby steps so that student success will be the mantra for all of us as faculty, and we will together ensure. And as one of the speaker moderators have said, not the moderators, but the panelists have said, it's a learning curve, and let's make the learning curve slow and steady, so that we all, at the end of it all, it may take a year or two, but we have the best online course offered by William Patterson University. That's our goal, that we will be number one, if not better, number one in providing online teaching. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you, guys. So hopefully we'll